Welcome, Integrous Women, to our video series of Conversations Worth Having. And you should have the workbook to use by now. And if not, you might want to put this on pause, grab your workbook, and we're starting off on page 8, the overview of video 1.
And hi, this is Sherry Torres, and the series will be 6 videos introducing you to Conversations Worth Having, which promise to improve your well-being, your relationships, and your success at work. Jackie, I don't know about you, but I've been in organizational development, team building, and leadership since the 80s, and communication has continued to stay as one of the top issues and complaints that people have in organizations. What's been your experience?
My experience is that effective communication is needed to run an organization smoothly. And I was reading LinkedIn, an article by Jeff Weiner, the CEO, that said there's 3 skill sets that are critical to success in any organization of any type. And that's leadership, team building, and communications. And guess what else he said? The boot camp of the future is one that is going to teach you how to have a conversation. And that's exactly what we're bringing to you in this video series.
So thank you, Jeff. So what percentage of your waking life would you say you spent in conversation, including the conversations you have in your own mind? If you're like most people we talk with, you'll say 95 to 99% of the time. It's kind of like the water in which fish swim. It's omnipresent. We're almost always in conversation, and yet we're not aware of the impact the conversation actually has on our well-being and on each moment of our lives. And just like the fish, if the water is toxic, the fish gets sick. If your conversations are toxic, you'll not be well, and you will not have success in business. So what kind of conversations are you having? Jackie and I have broken conversations down into 4 basic quadrants. We've done it along 2 continuums. The first is appreciative and depreciative, that our conversations are either adding value or they are devaluing. The second continuum is statement to inquiry. We're either asking questions or we're telling and making statements. And when you have a statement that is depreciative, we call that a destructive conversation when people are going back and forth. It might be something like, I say to Jackie, "You've got really sloppy work." And she might come back to me with,
"You know, all you do is tell me everything I can't do and what I don't do right."
Well, if you do something right, and then the conversation goes on, and it's destructive. There's never a time when having a destructive conversation is of value. The second kind of conversation we call critical conversations, and those are depreciative and inquiry-based. Those might sound something like, "Why did you do it that way?" Or, go ahead.
And I could say, "Well, could you tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for and the way you want me to do this?" Because I'm adding some inquiry into it.
And I've already told you, how many times do I have to tell you? So a conversation might proceed in that direction, which is critical. Now, if I'd replied in a more appreciative way to her question about, "Could you show me?" it would have bumped us up above the line. And above the line, the statement inquiry line, we have affirmative conversations, which are statement-based and appreciative, so they add value. One example might be something like, "Jackie, without you, we never would have had the quality of the book that we have. I am so grateful for your skills and your expertise."
And I could say something back to Sherry, that I really appreciate your level of creativity, how you write with flow. so that I can lead with my strengths in detailing and editing and connecting our readers.
So that's one kind of affirmative conversation. And another kind of affirmative conversation is one where you're advocating for something. And it might be something like, I prefer option B because it'll give us greater flexibility.
But I could go back to Sherry and say, I really think we need option A because this gets us done quicker with more focus and efficiency.
And if we stay going back and forth with me advocating for mine and Jackie advocating for hers, it moves out of the affirmative conversation down below the line. But if I come back to Jackie and I say, so tell me a bit more about why you think A is going to be faster and get us online more quickly.
And then I could come back in my conversation with Sherry and explain the importance of connecting our readers and transitioning and asking her, you know, what if we had these little boxes of high points in each chapter? What do you think of that?
So we call those conversations worth having. When you are adding value and you are asking one another questions which deepen and expand the connection, the possibilities, and understanding, you're in a conversation worth having. And what we are hoping that by the end of this little series that you will realize, if you haven't read the book yet, that you'll want to run and get the book. Because if you have 80% of your conversations as conversations worth having, we can promise you that your health and well-being will improve, your relationships will improve, your effectiveness in the workplace will increase, your ability to work in teams and collaborate, and your leadership will just skyrocket.
And I'd like to add, if you're following along in your workbook, we're actually on page 9 here, and I want you to think about where do you spend most of your time in your quadrants, and where could you be to push yourself? Because we also want to point out that if you're in a critical conversation or an affirmative, it doesn't take much, and we're going to share these 2 practices with you of how to push yourself into a conversation worth having. And in our workbook, in the first part of the workbook, we actually have the preface and the introduction. And one of the first stories we share with you is Visa Corporation. Why? Because Dee Hock created a $6 trillion organization based on, he was a master of conversations. And he talks about this, David Cooperwriter, who put the introduction together, talks about this in the first chapter. And I love this quote we share on the slide that, think about this, our organizational lives and the lives of others flourish or flounder one conversation at a time. Sherry, maybe you could tell them a little bit about appreciative inquiry, because that is like the heart, the operating system of this book here.
Sure. Just like we used in our grid about the nature of conversations, being appreciative is adding value or valuing what is, valuing people, valuing the best in an organization. And inquiry is just simply being curious, wondering and searching for what gives light, what energizes, and what might emerge. And when you put those 2 together, you can open up a whole world of possibility.
And if you take a look here, the Cleveland Clinic, we have this slide here because this is where appreciative inquiry came to life. It was co-created by David Cooperwriter and a series of faculty members. And think about this, that we live in a world our conversations create. And this next slide just shows there are organizations, hundreds of them all over the world, using appreciative inquiry to connect their employees to create new products and innovations and benefit their stakeholders. And most important, if you were to Google appreciative inquiry, you'd get 6.3 million answers in just less than a second. And it's extraordinary to see that something that's been around for almost 40 years, it's transformed thousands of groups and organizations and communities in over 100 countries around the world. And we have some homework here. When you're done watching this first video, just spend 15 minutes and watch a YouTube video or a TEDx talk, or go to the Appreciative Inquiry Commons, and you can find Appreciative Inquiry being used just about anywhere, anytime, in any situation. So as you move along in this video series, we've got this workbook for you, and we encourage you to follow along in the workbook, take notes as you're watching this, and at the end of each video series overview, we have the application and journal exercises to help you out.